Of the Appropriations Committee to order. Today we have 92 bills on file, only 6 of which are eligible for a due pass motion. The remaining bills are suspense items. 4 bills that are listed in the daily file will not be heard today. That is SB 494 and SB 538 will be rescheduled to a later hearing, and SB 337, SB 786 have been approved as 28.8s and will go straight to the Senate floor. Before I call the first author up, I'd like to remind the audience and members that testimony should be limited to the fiscal aspects of the bill. The bills have already received their policy hearing or hearings in certain instances, so I don't want to cut you off. I want to make sure we stick to the fiscal components of the bill. And Sergeant, could you please call the absent committee members and the following authors who are presenting bills so we can get started. Authors presenting bills with due pass recommendations are Senator Wolk, Hertzberg, Jackson, Senator Allen's already here, Morrell, and Hall. And suspense bills with presentations are Senator Bell, Pavley, Fuller, Leno, Mendoza, Mitchell, Wynn, Pan, and Stone. With that, we are going to convene as a subcommittee until we get quorum. And at this time, I'd like to call Senator Allen to come. Senator Allen, you have several items. And my understanding is that you're waiving presentation on SB 254, 447, 454, 613, 773, and 778.
That's
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
You do have a due motion recommendation for SB 439. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Election day voter registration will commence in California in 2017 following the implementation of our new statewide voter database. And of course, it's taken way too long, but we're now finally close to that important compilation. Under this pending system, county election officials must offer registration and concurrent provisional balloting to any qualified elector at the official's permanent office during the 2 weeks after the close of registration through Election Day. Now, they may only offer this, they may also offer this convenience to electors at satellite office locations, but under current law, those satellite office locations can only be used on Election Day itself. So this bill addresses this oversight by allowing the election officials to offer voter registration and voting in the satellite offices during the 2-week period before Election Day as well. It will also streamline the process whereby the Secretary of State approves ballot-on-demand printing systems. These ballot printing systems will help to serve voters who avail themselves of Election Day registration. It will result in only minor administrative costs, basically relating to the Secretary of State drawing up some guidelines associated with the implementation of this process. And it is supported by the Secretary of State. I think some folks from his office are here, and the California Association of Clerks and Elections Officials. So it's a small cost. It makes a big difference toward moving us toward a new electoral system in California, and I therefore respectfully request your aye vote on SB 439.
Thank you, Senator Allen. Before we move to your witnesses, we do have quorum. Secretary, please call the roll.
Laura?
Here.
Laura here. Bates? Here. Bates here. Bell? Hill? Here. Hill here. Leyva? Here. Leyva here. Mendoza? Nielsen?
Thank you, Senator Allen. Witnesses in support of the measure. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Jacqueline Wong Hernandez with the Department of Finance. We are neutral on this bill because it conforms statute to systems already being used in elections officials' offices and other locations, and it establishes clear statutory authority and criteria for the use of ballot-on-demand printing systems.
Thank you. Questions or comments from committee? We have a comment by our Vice Chair.
Senator Allen.
Yeah.
Get your microphone on. I certainly, applaud your efforts in terms of, expanding opportunities to vote. I do believe there remains a real threat in terms of voter fraud, and certainly that was alleged in a recent election in Orange County by then Senator Correa running for the Board of Supervisors. The lack of identification on residents in particular is a continuing issue, and I believe if you would consider that as this bill moves forward, there would be more likely Republican support. To me, it's, it doesn't infringe on an individual to show something that he or she is a resident of the district or the county in which they are voting. And other states that do have this same-day registration, there are a few states that do have that, but they do require an ID for residents. So I wish you would consider that as the bill moves forward.
Certainly, Senator, I'd be happy to talk to you further. I mean, you understand this is not, same-day registration has already been passed.
Right.
If anything, this should actually help considerably on issues of fraud concerns because it allows the county to expand out its computer system, which is so easily checked and verifiable, to other locations. And so I think it's very much, I understand your concerns with the broader policy that the state's passed, but this particular bill, I actually think helps to take us a little step further in supporting the integrity of the process and the system.
I'm just suggesting that if you add that to this bill, it would mitigate and modify what we currently have. And I think that's worth consideration.
Something that you can consider through the process as the bill moves forward. Senator Allen, is there any additional questions or comments on this item? Is there a motion? There's a motion by Senator Hill. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates?
No.
Bates, no. Bell? Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mendoza? Nielsen?
Thank you, Senators. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll keep the roll open to allow other senators to add on. Next, I see we have Senator Jackson. Senator Jackson, you have 4 items. You've waived presentation on SB 221 and SB 545.
That is correct.
Correct? And you do have a due pass recommendation on SB 570.
That is correct.
Let's begin with that bill.
All righty?
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. SB 570 is a bill that would improve the readability and clarity of the data breach notices that are sent to California residents when the security of their personal information is compromised in a data breach. Existing law requires breach notifications to be made in the most expedient time possible without unreasonable delay, and specifies certain information that must be included in these notices. The law provides that breach notifications must be written in plain language, but is otherwise silent about how the information should be presented or organized. Unfortunately, data breach notices are often written in a way that obscures the information they contain, making them ineffective in communicating critical information to affected California residents. The Attorney General's 2014 California Data Breach Report states that data breach notices tend to be written at the college level, while on average Californians read at an 8th grade level, some 5 grades lower. And I will confess that as an attorney, I sometimes find these data breach notifications difficult, if not impossible, to read myself. So I don't know quite what that means. Either I snuck through when I passed the bar and practiced for 22 years, or whether they are somewhat incomprehensible. This bill improves the readability of breach notices by simplifying and standardizing how entities present information about a breach to affected Californians. And we all know, heavens, I bet everybody in this room has been the victim of a data breach, or 2 or 6 or more. This measure directs the information currently required under existing law to be presented in one page with the information grouped into 5 headings. What happened? What information was involved, what we are doing, meaning the company, what you can do, meaning the person whose data has been breached, and where to go for more information. This bill ensures that businesses and government agencies remain free to provide additional information to supplement the required one-page notice as they see fit, Additionally, the bill makes certain technical changes to the data breach notification law, including specifying that notices conspicuously posted on a website under the substitute notice provision remain posted for a minimum of 30 days, and clarifies the meaning of conspicuous posting. These changes to the data breach notification law will help ensure that critical information pertaining to a breach is communicated effectively to California residents, empowering them to take appropriate steps to protect themselves after a breach has occurred. Some stakeholders have raised concerns about the bill, stating that it may create new litigation exposure for insufficient breach notices, expand mitigation service requirements, and bar electronic breach notifications. Concerning the new litigation exposure, something we hear over and over again every time we try to pass a law, this bill wouldn't require businesses or government agencies to disclose any more or less than is required under existing law. Basically, it will just require that they provide it in a way that's intelligible but understandable. I would like, that being said, I'm happy to work with the stakeholders to build a safe harbor into the bill with examples of notices that, if followed, would be deemed to comply with the law. Members, I think the concerns raised by the opposition can be easily addressed, and I'm committed to addressing those concerns and any others that may come up. But it is time, given the number of data breaches, that the public knows not just that their information has been breached, but what they might be able to do in response to it. And with that, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Joan McNabb. I'm the Director of Privacy Education and Policy for the Attorney General's Office. As Senator Jackson has explained, this is related to recommendations in the annual breach reports that we have found consistently that the breach notices are written at a very difficult level, and that it can sometimes be the bottom of the first of many pages before you even find out that, oops, your social security number was involved. So the idea of formatting it with headers, which are known ways to make information easier for people to grasp, seems like it would be a very positive step.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
We're neutral on this bill, as we think it will increase consumer protections and believe that the fiscal impact is minimal.
Great. Comments or questions from committee? Senator Bates.
I guess I'm concerned it shows that there's no cost to the state, but the state has had 4 major data breaches since 2013, and we would certainly have to pay for that out of the general fund. We don't have a cost for that or computed into this?
That would be a question for
Department
Finance.
of Finance?
So we have existing laws now that require the state to give notification. This makes changes to those notifications. So we don't think that there's a cost to make the required wording changes.
It was just the notification portion.
Right, the notification's already existing law.
Not convinced, but I hear you.
Basically, what it will do is just change the format and the information that they've already got to provide, and do it in a way that we can understand.
Any additional questions or comments from committee? There's a motion by Senator Leyva. Secretary, please call. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we? Yeah, we went through the whole motion. Sorry. It's Monday. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates?
No.
Bates, no. Bell? Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mendoza? Aye. Mendoza, aye. Nielsen?
Well, keep that.
It doesn't say.
3 pages.
Okay.
We'll put the bill on call, wait for Senator Nielsen to arrive.
Thank you very
Senator
much.
Jackson.
Thank you. If I could just present on file item SB 406.
Correct.
The employment leave bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, in honor of the fact that yesterday was Mother's Day, and hopefully all of us had the opportunity, either as mothers or having mothers or grandmothers or what have you, an opportunity to celebrate mothers yesterday and our caregivers and the people who provide stability in our lives. It's my hope that we don't just do that one day of the year. And if we truly are committed to our families and to the work that our loved ones and our parents and particularly our mothers provide, I think this is a critically important measure. So This is in honor of Mother's Day being more than just one Sunday a year. This is SB 406, which will expand job protections and increase access to paid family leave for Californian workers when they have to take time off to care for a seriously ill loved one or bond with a new child. This measure will extend CFRA protections to align with the recently expanded paid family leave program to workers who care for seriously ill children, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, and parents-in-law. This measure also extends the California Family Rights Act job protections to more employees by lowering the employer size threshold and ensuring that married couples who work for the same employer are also able to access as much of the benefit as possible. The Department of Fair Employment and Housing estimates costs of about $686,000, and there are unknown costs to the Department of Developmental Services, but the savings would be far greater by providing job-protected leave and allowing more workers to access California's paid family leave program that only they, the workers, contribute to. There's not a dime of employer money that goes to that program. Expanding job protections under this act makes sense for employers. Not only does it keep people in their jobs and able to spend money at businesses in their communities, but worker turnover and absenteeism also declines, and loyalty and productivity increase. Additionally, when workers have access to paid family leave, they're more likely to remain in the workforce, contributing to the tax base and boosting their own economic security. This bill is part of the Women's Legislative Caucus Stronger California agenda, and with that, I would respectfully ask for your aye vote to take this matter off the suspense file at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Mariko Yoshihara with the California Employment Lawyers Association, also here on behalf of the Legal Aid Society Employment Law Center. We're the co-sponsors of this bill, and I would just, as this bill moves to suspense, we would just hope the committee will consider the unintended cost pressures to the state if this bill is not enacted for workers who will lose their job because they have to take family leave, or for individuals who don't have family members to take care of them because that family member can't risk losing their job. Well, those individuals will most likely need to rely on public assistance to make ends meet or to get the care that they need. So this bill really lets families take care of each other, and so we strongly urge your support.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Jessica Bartholow with the Western Center on Law and Poverty in support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Mitch Seaman with the California Labor Federation, also in support.
Thank you. Additional witnesses, if you can state your name, organization, and position.
Greg DeShare with the ARC and United Cerebral Palsy California Collaboration. We support the bill, and we're particularly pleased to hear Senator Jackson point out that the Department of Developmental Services will have to cover the costs of this for service providers.
Good morning, Susan DeMorris with the Alzheimer's Association. We support this bill.
Good morning, Jerry Gonzalez with AARP and its 3 million members.
Mr. Chair, Seth Bramble here on behalf of the California Teachers Association in strong support.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition, can please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Jennifer Burr on behalf of the California Chamber of Commerce, and we are opposed to SB 406. We do believe in honoring our mothers, and the current law already provides for protected leave of absence for parents, including the paid family leave program here in California. Our concern is that this protected leave of absence is a 12-week protected leave of absence, meaning that the employer cannot change the job. They have to return the employee to the existing position upon their return, and that is costly to employers, even with the 50-employee threshold. By expanding this to employers with 25 employees and the family members for whom they can take the leave, it's a significant burden and expansion, and from our perspective would be a cost to the state to the extent that these employers are not going to grow or expand here in California. While there's nothing prohibiting an employee from taking the paid family program that they pay into now, we believe that the current level of protection where an employee and employer can basically engage in a conversation to determine the appropriate amount of leave to take is the more appropriate way in which to handle that, instead of expanding this bill, protected leave of absence onto smaller employers. The other thing that I would note is that by expanding it to 25 employees and adding the additional family members into the protection, it would make it inconsistent with the federal counterpart, the Federal Medical Leave Act. And so an employee here in California could take up to 24 weeks of protected leave of absence because they could trigger the state leave, which wouldn't trigger the federal one, and then come back and trigger the federal one as well. These leave of absences aren't taken just in the entire amount. They can be taken in increments as small as 2 hours, and so the administrative burden is quite significant.
What's the fiscal argument for this? Because you're repeating the policy argument, so I want to make sure that we stick to the fiscal.
I appreciate that. From our fiscal concern, it would be a cost to the state with regards to employers who do not want to expand or grow here in California given this new restriction or this new mandate on them. For those reasons, we are opposed.
Got it. Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition, please come forward.
California Grocers Association, California Dairies, Inc., Western Agricultural Processors Association, Nisi Farmers League, and California Fresh Fruit Association in opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senators Julianne Broyles here on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors and the Family Business Association. We do have the concern that the additional cost of covering more workers than we currently do underneath the Family Benefit Program is going to lead to unforeseen job increases as well as litigation costs on employers. Ask for no vote.
Thank you.
Nicole Rice, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, also opposed.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, Finance.
No file.
No file. Questions or comments from committee? Seeing hearing none, Senator Jackson, would you like to close?
Just a couple comments. The claims is going to cost California business, no data to prove that. Totally speculative claims. The cost that is borne to the employee by being able to access paid family leave that they already put money into. It's just simply having that money available. And it turns out the average length of time that an employee takes off is 10 days, because at 55% of their income, they can't afford to take much more than this. This just simply lowers the threshold to 25 employees and gives people the opportunity to expand the definition of family members to include those grandparents, grandchildren, et cetera, that we did last year in the Paid Family Leave Act. The big problem here is that when you take paid family leave, it's not protected. But when you take family leave under CFRA, it is protected, but you don't get paid. So this will just simply try to connect the two a little bit better. Again, the burden is still on the employee to put that money into the Paid Family Leave Act. It doesn't cost the employer, and there's no data that shows that this has in any way affected businesses in the state. I would submit to you that loyal employees who are given the opportunity to care for their loved ones make better employees. And with that, I would ask for your aye vote off of suspense.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Without objection, we will move this bill to the suspense file. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. Next, we have Senator Pavley. Senator Pavley, you have a number of items. My understanding is you're waiving presentation on SB 365, 618, and 706.
That would be correct.
So let's begin with your first item, which is the suspense candidate, SB 62.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
I keep wanting to say the delightful chairman from Long Beach, because you do that to us on the floor, but I won't.
You can do that, that's fine. Clarity will get you everywhere.
Yes, right. This is the Teacher Recruitment and Financial Aid Act. As a lifelong teacher, this is one of my passions and interests and one of my priority bills. What you may not know is the number of students going in the teacher credentialing program has dropped tremendously in the last few years, up to 70% drop. In fact, Cal State Northridge, which is the campus closest to my district, they have 50% less teachers going through the Teacher Credentialing Commission, and they were #1 in the state, I believe. But there's several factors that have gone into this. #1 was the recession, where you increased class sizes. A lot of teachers were let go. #2, the baby boomers, my age group, retiring in droves. In fact, CTA estimates that 1/3 of today's teachers will be retiring in the short years ahead. But a new dynamic has really made it more difficult to attract teachers, and that's the student loan debt. Many students are coming out of college with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of student loan debt, it doesn't make sense to take that fifth year and be a teacher when your starting salary makes it so you can't even pay off your loans. It's not attractive. What you may not know, 12 years ago, we actually spent $80 million a year on 2 programs that were very successful, and they've been audited, and they worked well in the state in attracting new teachers, reducing, it was a loan assumption program, reducing their debt. It was called the Apple Program, Assumption Programs of Loans for Education, and the other one was the Governor's Teachers Fellowship Programs. This bill puts back those 2 programs that were successful. They each have different approaches to doing this, but what my bill also does is really focus these new teachers who would get their loans forgiven. In exchange, they would teach in a school district that would have qualified under local control funding formula districts as low performing or whatever the criteria are that they have it that fits into that. So that puts an incentive for these new teachers to go into those schools, and then their loan is forgiven. Cost, you may ask. There is a financial cost. We used to spend $80 million. We're one of the few states who doesn't have a loan forgiveness program to attract new teachers. It would be about $44 million. Money well spent, in my opinion. We can buy all the things we want for our classrooms, but if you don't have a good teacher, that's the heart and soul of every classroom. It's probably not worth buying all the other stuff. So I ask for your consideration of, I think, a very important program and a good complement to Proposition 30 and our local control funding formula.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Debbie Look, on behalf of State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson. Superintendent's pleased to sponsor this very important bill to aid in recruitment of strong candidates into the teaching profession. Given the pending teacher shortage, as Senator Pavley mentioned, it's important that the state takes action to address this issue in a way that provides equitable access for teachers across the state. And as the Senator mentioned, it's reinstating 2 important programs. Just want to be clear in terms of the finances that the language in the Apple bill is permissive around the number of new warrants that's issued each year. The maximum amount expended per candidate would be $19,000 per year, assuming they meet all of the conditions in teaching in a shortage area and a high-needs school for the first 4 years. At its peak, the Apple program in 2006-07, the state granted $39 million a year. And whereas the Governor's Teaching Fellowship is a flat $20,000 upfront to the candidates and requires repayment if they don't meet all of the provisions. Just a comment on the staff analysis noted that there was a current limit of $5 million per year in the current program. My understanding is that is only for the bonus payments, the additional $1,000 a year for teaching in a shortage area, not for the loan assumptions overall. So on behalf of the state superintendent, I urge your aye vote when this comes off suspense for this important program to recruit high-quality candidates so that all of our students will have a strong teacher in their classroom.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Isabel Garcia on behalf of the California Teachers Association. We believe that every California child deserves a caring, qualified, committed teacher, and this bill is an important priority to help rebuild California's teacher workforce so that we can increase the supply of fully credentialed teachers to meet all of the chronic teacher shortage needs that we currently have ongoing, not to mention the ones that are anticipated. So we ask your support to help move this bill off suspense. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Erica Hoffman on behalf of the California School Boards Association, and for all the reasons mentioned, we are in support and would urge your aye vote off suspense. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support, please come forward.
Angela Williams, California Student Aid Commission, in support.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition, please come forward. Seeing none, finance.
No file.
Comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, without objection, we'll move this bill to suspense. Senator Pavley. Senator Pavley, the next bill you have is SB 248. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you very much. This bill is related to DOGGR, the Division of Oil and Gas and Geothermal Recovery. It's an injection well reform bill. Many of you know I co-chaired a hearing last March where we learned that under DOGGR, we had to come to grips with the fact that over 2,500 oil and gas wells were improperly permitted, exposed by our own Federal Environmental Protection Agency. My concern as chair of the Natural Resources and Water Committee is putting our groundwater resources at risk, which in a drought is 60% of our state's water supply. This bill, I won't go through the 3 reforms because that's not what you're primarily concerned about, but love to talk to you at a separate time, Chair Lara, about this bill. I haven't had time to go through the appropriations analysis, but we'll work with staff to reduce costs. But I would like to note that none of this comes from general fund. It would be paid for, these reforms, to protect our groundwater supply and meet the federal requirements under the EPA, is supported by a per barrel fee assessment. So it is essentially a user fee that certainly fits into the any legal definition of user's fee to protect our water, as well as allow oil drilling to continue. But these reform measures are urgently needed, and I ask for your support of this measure.
This is in support of the measure.
Andrew Grinberg with Clean Water Action in support of the bill. From a fiscal perspective, we believe this bill adds a level of fiscal responsibility to the division. They've been appropriated funds in the past to bring this program into compliance, and with the mandate of the legislature under this bill, that will ensure that those responsibilities are actually carried out. We see that this is not a cost to taxpayers and does not interfere at all with the emergency regulations or any of the compliance schedule and activities going on already by the state. So we urge your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Alio for the Environmental Working Group in support. There are going to be some costs for this. That's okay. Dogger needs to do a better job at this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brianna Mordick, Natural Resources Defense Council. We strongly support this bill. We think the costs are understandable. This will be funded by a $1 billion industry. The costs to remediate contaminated groundwater are extremely high, and so the small cost that this bill would impose on the industry to prevent contamination is warranted, and we urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Brian White with KP Public Affairs here on behalf of Western States Petroleum Association, and also here from my colleagues, the California Independent Petroleum Association, who couldn't be here today. We are opposed to the bill, primarily on policy grounds, but we think it will redefine critical aspects of the UIC program. That being said, there are some significant fiscal implications associated with the bill, none more so than the additional ongoing cost pressures, as noted in the committee analysis, and also with the existing regulations that are already in place. Those would have to be revised as well. And we think with the loss of state revenue, by actually shutting in some of these wells, that would actually be an impact to the state. We think that the existing regulations are adequate to deal with this issue, and we note that the administration is also working on some budget trailer language that would actually address monitoring and inspection. So for those reasons, we ask for a no vote.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition.
California Chamber of Commerce.
Also in opposition.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
Comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, without objection, we'll move this bill to suspense. Look forward to working with you on this issue, Senator Pappen.